And when we approach her, won't you, Judge?
Approach?
Yes.
All right.
Just scheduling purposes. Perfect.
Morning, Detective. How are you?
Good, and you?
I'm doing all right, thanks. All right, so you previously described Mike Warren as a lady.
Yes,
All right, so he was known to have affairs with quite a few women back in the day.
yes,
Okay. And people have affairs.
that question, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's fair to say people have affairs. And not everybody who has an affair commits a murder.
correct.
All right, on that show, you stated that you reviewed the entire case file before arresting Ms. Keenorn.
I don't know.
All right, but you have reviewed the entire case file before arresting Ms. Keenorn.
I have reviewed the case file, that I know reviewed the entire case file, yes.
And that includes police reports,
Correct?
witness interviews,
Yes,
forensic reports,
correct?
photographs,
Yes,
documents,
yes,
interviews on radio shows,
yes,
and countless other pieces of evidence you discussed on direct examination.
yes,
Your Honor, I'm going to admit by stipulation 8 transcripts. And that's going to be found exhibits 1 through 8. I'm going to read those into the record. And I know many of them have been admitted by the state, but for purposes of keeping up.
You just read the title of the document.
I'm going to read the titles first. I'm going to have Detective McCann have them for reference, and then we'll move them into evidence and let her have them for reference. All right, Exhibit 1 is the interview of Joey Ahrens on May 26, 1990. Exhibit 2, interview of Joseph Ahrens on June 28, 1991. Exhibit 3, interview of Jean Ann Pratt on May 26, 1990. Defense 4, interview of Jean Pratt on June 27, 1991. Exhibit 5, interview of Wendell Pratt on May 26, 1990. Exhibit 6, interview of Wendell Pratt on June 27, 1991. Exhibit 8, interview of Mindy Perez on May 26, 1990. And Exhibit 8, interview of Mindy Perez on June 27, 1991. And I'm looking at evidence without objection from the state.
No objection, counsel, I believe you now plead twice. Yeah, you did, that's right. Because you had 7.
Oh, I apologize.
Right?
Yes. Now, may I first the witness to give her these for reference?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, no objection, Judge, that wasn't clear.
May 26, 1990 was defense 7, and Mindy Perez, June 27, 1991, was defense 8.
Yes.
All right. Marlene Warren was shot on May 26, 1990.
yes,
As you testified, 4 people were at the house.
it was Joey Ahrens, Mindy Perez, Jean Pratt, Wendell Pratt, Jean's daughter, or I'm not sure, child, I don't remember, it was a girl or boy, and Marlene Warren.
Okay. And on May 26, 1990, all 4 of these witnesses, I'm referring to Mr. Ahrens, Ms. Pratt, Mr. Pratt, and Mindy Perez, gave sworn recorded statements to either Detective Bill Williams or Detective Dwayne Kelly.
Yes,
And, having gone through your case file in early June of 1991, Mr. Ahrens and Mike Warren were also interviewed on WJNO radio.
I don't know the specific date, but I do recall that they were interviewed.
And that was part of the discovery you provided to the state, or part of the evidence you provided to the state.
Yes.
And on June 27th and June 28th, 1991, approximately a year after the shooting, the state attorney's office and PBSO conducted a second round of interviews of these 4 witnesses.
June 28th for Mr. Ahrens, yes.
And June 27th for Gene Pratt, Wendell Pratt, and Mindy Perez.
Yes.
These interviews were conducted by investigator Tim Valentine,
Yes.
Detective Lou Sessa,
Yes.
Detective Scott Smith,
Yes.
and Assistant State Attorney Paul Moyle.
Yes.
And I want to talk about these interviews and specifically some of these inconsistencies you talked about during your direct examination. All right, so in all 4 witnesses, in all 4 interviews, or all 8 interviews, the 4 witnesses stated that a clown came to the door and shot Marlene Moore.
Yes.
The detectives, like you said, questioned the 4 witnesses about the clown's appearance.
Yes.
They asked about the clown's height,
Yes.
weight,
Yes.
gender,
Yes.
eyes,
Yes.
face,
Yes.
costume,
Yes.
wig,
Yes.
shoes,
Yes.
and the type of car the clown drove.
Yes.
And I want to start with the clown's height and weight. I noticed that at least the height wasn't discussed on direct examination. And I want to begin with Joey Ahrens' interview from the day of the shooting. And that would be defense 1. Mr. Ahrens said the clown was about 6'1", tall and skinny. Is that correct?
Sure.
Yes.
Yes? Okay. He later in that interview reiterated that the clown was tall.
That I don't know.
I'll refer to page 12, line 22.
I don't know if that was the first, when was the first time he said it, I'm not sure. I just know that he was saying, I just didn't, where did he say?
All right, page 6, line 20, Mr. Ahrens said the clown was about 6'1", tall, skinny.
Okay, yes, that would have been the second time.
Okay. And page 12, line 25, said the clown weighed about 1'8", 170.
About 187?
Okay. Then I want to move on to Mr. Ahrens' radio interview from June of 1991.
Is that in
You
here?
don't have that in front of you. I was going to ask you a few questions about it. Again there, he said the clown was over 6 feet tall,
I don't recall.
but that was part of your case file.
Yes, along with the numerous amount of other tapes and statements.
All right, and he said in that interview, radio interview, he was able to assess the clown's height because the clown wig was bald on the top.
Which interview are you talking about now? I'm sorry.
The same, the radio interview with Joey Ahrens and Mike Warren.
I don't recall what he said on that one.
All right. Let's move on to the interview from June 28, 1991 of Joey. Again, during that interview, Detective Sessa and then Investigator Valentine questioned him about the clown's physical characteristics.
You could version, I think, Mike.
Sure.
Okay, sorry.
But during that interview, Sessa and Valentine questioned Joey Ahrens about the clown's physical characteristics.
Yes,
And you've read the interview before in preparation for today's deposition
I have.
as part of your investigation.
Yes,
And they actually spent a considerable amount of time about the clown's physical characteristics. They were trying to find this clown.
they were trying to find the clown. I'm sorry, I don't know how long they spent on it.
All right, but in the June 28, 1991 interview, they didn't ask a single question about the clown site.
I don't know if they did or not.
You want to take some time going through
I
that?
would have to read the whole thing. I'm sorry, I can't refer to a specific, that being that specific when I had to review an enormous amount of statements.
Sure. But as far as you know, you don't have any recollection of them asking about the clown site?
I don't recall.
They didn't ask a single question about the clown's weight in that interview?
I don't recall.
And they didn't ask a single question about the clown's build in that interview?
I don't recall.
But they do ask him about Sheila Key Warren's build. You recall that?
No, I don't recall anything.
All right, let's take a look at page 28, lines 15 through 16.
Page 28?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, which ones?
15 through 16.
I had to go a little bit before that to see what you're talking about. Okay.
All right, and Mr. Ahern says, line 17, she's got a big frame.
Yes.
They ask him, how tall of a woman is she? Line 8.
Yes.
And in regard to Miss E. Warren, Mr. Ahern's replied, she's not very tall. She's about 5'9", 5'8".
Correct.
And I want to read you a comment and ask you some questions about something that, mentioned in the state's response brief. Mr. Ahern's described the clown as having brown eyes, being skinny, and not being able to see any part of the clown's body due to the costume. All right? I'm going to ask you some questions about that. So we're all in agreement based on the testimony you gave that Mr. Ahern described the clown as skinny.
Objection, Judge, a proper question to bring to counsel's response. As part of the question.
And so we're all in agreement that Mr. Ahern's described the clown as skinny.
All the same.
And as you just stated, he described Miss Kim Warren as having a big frame.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
As you just, I apologize, I know the mask is there at times. As you just stated, he described Miss Kim Warren as having a big frame.
Yes, that's what he said in the statement.
And on both May 26, 1990, he described the clown as being over 6 feet tall.
Yes.
All right, I will move on to Gene Pratt's interview from May 26, 1990. That would be Defense Exhibit 3. One, Joey, in his radio interview, Joey confirmed that it was the type of clown wig that was bald on the top. June 28, 1991, Defense 2, page 4, lines 16 through 17. Joey Ahern said he had a wig that was all different colors.
Yes.
2 lines down, orange, yellow, green.
Yes.
2 lines down, just a bunch of colors.
Yes.
All right, again, in the case response, it asks some questions about a comment. Page 4 of that, maybe you have it in front of you. Warren's son, Joseph Ahern, stated that he recalled the clown was wearing an orange wig.
I'm sorry, say that again.
All right, I'm going to read a statement to you, not a question,
Oh, okay.
but and I can ask you some questions based on this statement, the statement and the response. Warren's son Joseph Ahern stated that he recalled the clown wearing an orange wig. All right, so based on what we just discussed, on June 28, 1991, Mr. Ahern said the clown was wearing an orange, yellow, and green wig,
On that date, yes.
a multicolored wig.
On that date.
All right, so back in 1990, the detectives bought a clown wig that they believed matched the wig worn by the clown.
That's what they were, yes, they went to Spotlight and Easy, and they sold them the same wig, same type of wig that was purchased.
I'm going to ask you some questions a little bit later about the purpose of this wig, but for the time being, the wig they purchased, it was an orange wig.
Yes.
Defense Exhibit 2, Joey Ahern, June 28, 1991, page 23, lines 6 through 7. Investigator Valentine showed Joey Ahern the wig.
Yes.
Detective Sessa tried the wig on. Do you recall that? Page 24, line 7.
Yes.
Joey said he wasn't sure if it was the type of wig the clown was wearing. Lines 14 through 16, page 23.
On page 23?
Yes.
He said, I don't recall.
All right, and 2419.
Page 24?
Yes.
19? Okay.
It didn't have, the wig didn't have all the colors you saw on the shooter's wig.
So I'm just trying to read prior to that.
Sure.
What we're talking about. What was your question?
Joey Ahern made it clear that the wig that they purchased, the detectives, didn't have all the colors that Joey Ahern saw on the shooter's wig.
He said, I remember seeing this side when he turned and it was colored. Just one side of it was colored. No, it was all colored. Was it more orange? I don't recall.
And as we'll discuss later in this examination, this was the wig they purchased that was used for fiber comparisons in this case.
Yes, the wig they purchased.
May 26, 1991, Gene Pratt, defense 4. The detectives also asked Gene Pratt about the wig. You recall that?
Yes.
Page 7, lines 8 through 9. Actually, let me strike that for a second. June 27, 1991, page 17, lines 1 through 2.
So the second statement of Gene Pratt?
Yes, sir.
And, I'm sorry, what page?
Page 17, lines 1 through 2.
Okay.
She said she did not remember the color of the wig.
In the statement, yes.
17, 3 through 4. She said she didn't know if it was a bright color.
Correct.
And you said in this statement, she said that. What do you mean by that?
I put in another statement, she had indicated that it was orange.
All right, can you take out defense 3, May 26, 1991, page 7, lines 8 through 9? And she said in that interview, I don't know what color it was. That was May 26, 1990.
Okay, and line 5 is good?
Page 7, lines 8 through 9.
Just, I don't know what color it was.
All All right, so in both interviews, she said she did not recall the color of the wig.
I'll have to review them, but I believe in one of them, at some point she indicated that it was orange.
Sure. I mean, do you
Okay.
need time to review the entire interview? You can sit down.
I'm sorry?
Do you need time to review these interviews?
In order to indicate exactly which one, but I have in my notes that that she at one point indicated orange.
Well, she didn't, but you can look over lunch and let me know if you find it. Let's get back to the June 27, 1991 interview. Gene Pratt, Defense Exhibit 4. 5, line 5. Showed her also the wig that they purchased. And page 25, line 5, Gene Pratt immediately stated, it was shorter, it wasn't that long.
Yes.
And then a few lines down, the only similarity she noticed was the color.
Yes.
And maybe that's where you're getting the orange from?
Specifically, I thought she said orange.
All right, so another comment from the state's response I'm going to ask you about. She, referring to Gene Pratt, stated that a wig identical to the one worn by the clown, purchased from Spotlight, looked similar to what the clown wore. And again, Gene Pratt's immediate response was, this doesn't look like it.
I'm not comfortable using immediate response.
It was
She
the
did
first
respond
thing
to
she
it.
said.
She did respond to it and did state that, yes.
She didn't say it looked similar. She said, this doesn't look like it.
That's, in that line that you indicated, yes, that's exactly what she
Okay.
said.
Wendell Pratt, May 26, 1990. That's Defense Exhibit 5. Go to page 4, line 6. Wendell Pratt called the wig, or stated, it was a big red wig.
A big red wig.
He didn't say orange, he said red, right?
Right.
Lines 19 through 21, same page. He said it was red clown hair.
Red hair and red clown hair. Yes.
All right, Defense Exhibit 6, June 27, 1991 interview of Wendell Pratt. Page 13, lines 22 through 25. Wendell said it was one of them little fuzzy red and yellow wigs, red, orange, and yellow, something like that.
Right.
He confirmed, page 14, line 1, that it was a multicolored wig.
Yes.
And on page 31, Investigator Valentine, Detective Sessa, and Assistant State Attorney Moyle showed Wendell this wig they purchased.
What page is that?
Page 31.
Okay. What line is that?
All right, lines 15 through, well, 5 through 19,
Okay.
where they discuss where they asked him whether or not that was the right wig. And throughout that conversation, he said it wasn't the right wig because of the color.
He said possibility, I really can't tell you if it was or not. It could have been.
All right, let me read that whole passage to you. Investigator Valentine, for the record, I'm showing him a wig, fluffy orange, yellowy colored wig. Does that wig look like the wig the clown wore that day? When Wendell Pratt replies, if it had a little bit of red light tint to it, probably would have been. Investigator Valentine, by red tint, you mean if this was a deeper orange color or had like red streaks through it? Wendell Pratt said, red streaks through it. You know, when you glance at something, it's like it had two different colors in it, 2 to 3 different colors in it. Investigator Valentine, how about the orange color? Does the orange color in the wig represent the orange color you saw that day? Take a look at it now. Pratt, possibility, I really can't, really can't tell if it was or not. It could have been. So the orange color he's referring to is the orange portion of this multicolored, 3-colored wig.
It could have been.
I mean, that's,
Yeah, I mean,
that's what was said in the text.
What you read is exactly what's on the shelf.
All right.
Real quick, how much longer you have the wig section?
The what? For the section?
How long do you have the wig section?
Which section? I have about 4 more questions.
So we're okay.
Do we break for lunch after that? Is that works for you, Ron? May 26, 1990, Mindy Perez, Defense Exhibit 7.
1991, okay.
Yeah, page 8, lines 20 through 21.
Page 8,
Yes.
lines 20 to 21.
Yes.
Okay.
Mindy Perez described the wig as red.
Yes.
So 4 people saw this fake wig purchased by PBS.
I don't know, did they show me the corrections or?
June 27, 1991, Defense 8, page 7, lines 14 through 16. She didn't remember what the wig looked like or the color of the wig and shown the wig.
Did it say that? So I don't see where they actually showed her the way. Did I miss that?
It might have been on the last page, but. One moment. Ron. That's page 10.
Okay, yes.
And-
Five, I don't know.
She doesn't know. One moment. Alright, so 4 people went to the wig.
Yes.
1, Mindy Perez had nothing to say about it. She didn't recall. She couldn't tell that with the wig.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Joe Ahern said that it didn't have all the colors he saw on the shooter's wig. Gene Pratt said, that's not the wig. And Wendell Pratt also said the coloring was off, didn't have all the colors. Is that right?
Yes, I'm sorry, we've been through so many cases, I believe all 4 of them were covered.
Okay. I think it's a good time to break for lunch, Judge.
So how much longer do you have in your cross?
I would say at most 2 hours.
So, Mr. Scott, we were talking about it now, right?
Yes.
And a lot of this stuff is simply asking the witness to regurgitate with wording evidence, right? Something that you can allude to when you wrap it up in a closing comments or closing it up, would you not, if you voted on? You understand what I'm saying? Well, a lot of stuff, did this witness say this on this day? Isn't that stuff you could basically point out to the court, rather than spending another 2 more hours even listening to that?
I guess the state's willing to stipulate that whatever's in evidence is evidence. We can make argument, frankly, we made argument in briefs at this point.
That's what I'm saying, Mr. Rhodes. Well, why would we 2 hours listening to you simply asking this witness information, which basically alluding to what's already in evidence? But you can always make those arguments to me anyway. That's all I'm saying, it's pretty much what you've been doing, right? You've been doing that for the last hour and a half.
Well, I think my argument will be considerably shorter based on our answering these questions. And as to the rest of my cross following this section, which should be over in about 20 minutes, I have quite a bit to discuss based on what she's talking about here. So I think for context for the court, it's going to be a little bit confusing if they're not asked now. And I do
I'm
recognize.
just asking you to consider the fact that what's in evidence, right, I stipulated this, is information you can absolutely argue by drawing the court's attention to whatever the content is of, specific content is embodied in those documents already in evidence, without having to go through again with the witness. And so I'm just asking you to conduct your cross, but consider the court's time as well, Mr. Rosenfeld, okay, and with stuff that you can absolutely argue, why make this witness simply regurgitate what's already in there? You know, so just ask you to consider of that as you proceed. Okay?
Yes, Judge, I completely understand your point. There just were inconsistencies on direct that, and I do recognize what you're saying, but I do think it would be clear. I know I mentioned some in my motion. I intentionally didn't get into most of the things, just a few key points. And, you know, these questions of identification move pretty quick after lunch, and then, you know, we get a lot of new material.
Not an issue.
Yes, we're going to.
Again, I'm asking you to try to reduce down the simple regurgitation of information that's already in evidence that the court will consider. Okay, and you can absolutely draw the court's attention to it at a later point in time. Okay, so it seems like it's kind of duplicitous. You got me, Mr. Roosevelt?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right. So, your witness, you said you were going to call one witness, right?
Yeah, that should be good.
I'm sorry.
That should take no longer than 10 minutes.
Right, the son of.
Seymour,
Correct,
yes.
right. So that's a 10-minute witness roughly. Would you say, Mr. Scott, you need any more than 10 minutes across or not?
No, I don't think that's.
So if we pick it up at 1:45, your cross, Mr. Roosevelt, of this witness should be done by what time?
Go back to 1:40.
From the left to 12 right now. The witness should just leave the other stuff on it. Hold on, guys. The documents that the witness has, you want to clerk the one set or take that, or what?
Let's look at all onto it. We have, it's more sad.